things because this was a very enlightening book. If you have opportunity to read it, I suggest you do it. In this book, if you remember, I said there, the book were some lessons or some information that Imam Ghazalay was offering to one of his students who had became a sheikh in his own right. And the lessons are from Quran, from the Hadith, and from other sources Imam Ghazalay had. And this one student was with his scholar, and his scholar asked him, "You've been in my company for 30 years. What have you taken from this?" And if you recall, he said, "I've taken 8 useful lessons, and I gave you 2 of those lessons. One was, in short, that you depend on Allah," that he saw people depending on created things, and he said he wanted to depend on the one who created all these things, which was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said another was that he saw people had love and adornment for things of this world that were temporary, and he said that he wanted to love something that would go with him. So this lesson number 3 I thought was very profound, in which he said, أني أرأيت كل واحد من الناس يسعى في جمع حطام الدنيا. He started out by saying that. And this was so, subhanAllah, so profound in itself that he said that he saw or observed, and he always started some of these saying he observed every mankind, individuals in mankind, he said, exerting themselves in collecting yas'a fi jam'i hutam ad-dunya. And this was, subhanAllah, I thought was very profound the way he said it, because he said he saw them collecting, exerting, tiring themselves, collecting hutam ad-dunya. And this is a term, in English, they translate it to ephemeral, means something temporary. But this term in English had an original meaning in medicine, and it means a person who became sick for one day, a short time. But in Arabic, this hutam, it was interesting, it said, because this can translate to be something that is like wreckage or debris. Something, so it says that man go about in collecting wreckage or debris. You see, things that ultimately become no use. Then he said, ثُمَّ يُمْسِكُهُ قَابِضًا يَدُّهُ عَلَيْهِ. And this also was very, for me, it put a picture in my mind. It says, then ثُمَّ يُمْسِكُهُ قَابِضًا. It's like man goes about collecting these things. Like if you ever saw a person trying to kill a fly or catch a bird, he's grabbing everywhere. He described, his picture in my mind was that man goes about grabbing and clutching and scratching and reaching for these things, he's saying, until he catches these things and he has them in his hands. So man grabbles and works hard for these things that are temporary and becomes really of no real benefit. And then he said he thought to himself, after he saw these things, and most of his advice, he always say, then he recalled something. He said, then he contemplated and he meditated on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It says, Allah said, مَا عِنْدَكُمْ يَنْفَدُ وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ بَاقٍ. Subhanallah. He said that, then he thought, and Allah said, the possessions that we have are temporary. They're short-lived. You have a car, if it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, it becomes what? Wreckage, ruins, right? None of these things are things Allah puts here. Trees and birds, and these things become back to the earth. In the water, we go back to the earth. Cars, you see piles of junk. accumulation of computers, phones. All these things are things now man has become. It has become a problem that the earth and the water is overwhelmed with trash and garbage. You see, these temporary things that we fight for. And he said, these things are temporary, but what is in possession of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is eternal. And if we go back and we think what he said earlier, he says, first thing, I want to love and take with me to the grave something that was lasting, something that would go with me to the grave. And he said, what was that? If you remember, he said, Amilu salihati, good deeds. And then he said, فَفَرَقْتُهُ بَيْنَ الْمَسَاكِينَ لِيَكُونُوا ذُخْرًا لِعِنْدَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. He says, so then he took those worldly things that he worked for, and he sacrificed them for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he distributed those things to the poor. He says so that they would be, subhanallah, he says so that they would be lukhurali, that they would become what? A treasure and a benefit for him, hopefully with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's it. That was the third lesson, subhanallah. Allah, subhanallah. These are, as I said, these are wonderful lessons that come from the Quran and from the Sunnah. So we would benefit to take lessons and spend not so much time grasping, like I said, chasing these things like a bird, trying to catch a bird or kill a fly or a bug. And we get it in our hand, these things are only temporary and of little use, and they become wreckage, they become ruins, they become something that's not nice on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's earth. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to collect and do good deeds and take the things that Allah blesses us with and distribute them among those who are more needy. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa ajma'in. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salatu wa salamu ala